Hello. If you're interested in doing a Pokemon regional, you may have a lot of questions, but you don't have a lot of answers. And that's where I come in. Hi, everyone. I'm Bobby, or also known as Rob Bay, and I, a few weeks ago, attended my first regional for VGC in Las Vegas. And so this video is going to look at what is a Pokemon regional and is the price worth it? Now, a Pokemon regional, for those who don't know, are big events that are put on by the Play Pokemon company that will often have the trading card game, the video game competition, VGC or TCG, and then some venues will have Unite or Pokemon Go. This video is not intended to help you with regulations or metas or any of that stuff. I'm not helpful for that. In fact, I'm probably actively not helpful. But as someone who's attended a regional, I probably have a little bit more information if you've never attended one. If you're interested in going, you may have some questions, because I know that I did. And when I was looking around, when I was prepping for the tournament, I didn't really find a lot of helpful resources. So hopefully this video will be helpful for you in deciding whether or not attending a Pokemon regional is worth the price of admission. So now here's the first big question. I'm not gonna belabor it and put the most important question at the end. Is it worth the cost of entry for the experience you'll get? Now, in order to enter a regional, it is $80 for the Masters division, which is the adult division. Now, for some people, $80 might not be a lot of money, and for some people, that might be a lot of money. And so I want to be respectful of what are you getting with that $80? Now, of course, there's a prize pool, but I think it would be a little bit presumptuous to assume that you might win on your first time. Maybe you are. Maybe you're the GOAT. I don't know. But I would not factor that in my calculus. So what are you getting with this $80? Well, you're getting 8 rounds of competition, and you will be paired with people with the same record as you as best as possible. So if you're not doing as great in the competition, you'll face people who are also not doing as great. And if you're doing really well, you'll face people who are doing really well. Now, for me personally, I found the experience super fun. I met amazing people. I pretty much loved every single opponent that I had and wanted to be their bestie after. And that alone, for me, not even counting the experience of competing, I think was worth it. The atmosphere was really inviting. It felt very inclusive. There are lots of really cool people there. And I found that it was more than worth the $80 I attended, that it cost to attend the regional. I felt like I got a lot of value out of that $80 and met so many cool people. And the experience of competing was just really fun. I'm a competitive person. And so I would be willing to pay more than that for this kind of experience. You may not, and that's totally fine. And maybe you're like, "Oh, I don't want to compete, but I still want to go." There's still options for people to be spectators or things like that. And that's what made me comfortable attending my first regional in the first place. I went to Worlds as a spectator, kind of saw what things looked like, and I went, I could do this, maybe. So you might be wondering, what kind of atmosphere can I expect at a regional? Now, it's a bit chaotic, especially in the morning, because everyone's trying to find everything and everywhere. In VGC, there were about 800 competitors in my category, but in the trading card game, there were 3,000 competitors. And so the way it works is that you have to register and get a wristband. You can get it the day before the tournament on a Friday. I'd recommend doing that if you have the option to, or you have to do it early Saturday morning. Now, for Vegas, they expected people to get there pretty early in the morning. My fiance and I, we did not get there till late Friday night. So we went early, 6:30 Saturday morning, Vegas. Now, I know for a lot of people that was not super fun, but for me, I did speech and debate tournaments in high school where you got up at super early. So I was kind of used to that. And I was like, maybe this could be my advantage, right? Everyone's going to be hungover and maybe I'll be ready. So there's a lot of people, there's security. Security at tournaments can be variable. They can be really efficient or they be kind of inefficient, and their personalities can vary. So you can have kind of rude security, or you could have more friendly security. It's kind of the luck of the draw. But I personally did not find security to be an issue. I know some people at the regional thought their security was being a bit much, and they were a little bit. But I also do think it's hard to host a big, massive event involving thousands and thousands of people and security and things like that. So I think as much as they should have more grace for us, I think we should have grace for the folks that are trying to run it, because it's not like every weekend they're running this specific thing. So there could be some friction there for some people in terms of the atmosphere, but minus security, the atmosphere is great. Everyone was really cool. Everyone's really excited. There's different places to go. So if you want to get merch, you can. If you want to watch the stream matches, if you're not playing, you can. And I think every single one of my opponents, except for one, I had a very positive interaction with. And the one that I didn't have a positive interaction, it was just the context of the game. It gets emotional, especially later in a tournament when like you eliminate people from the tournament. And that's something that I did not think about when I went to go compete, is like, oh, if I do well, I'm going to eliminate someone. And that can be tough, but that's part of the competition. And I think you have to be ready for that. So let's just say you're thinking about competing, but what are there other things to do besides compete? And there are, like I mentioned, there's merch, like stations. There will be usually, different places you can go. It's a big venue, so you can probably get food depending on where you're going. And just know a lot of the things I'm saying might be venue specific. This is just my experience from Las Vegas, but it's possible in wherever you are, it could be a better experience or a worse experience. But I only have the one experience I have to go off of. And so when it comes to things to do, if let's just say you're eliminated, there are often side events that you can compete in. So some side events might be side events for the trading card game, for the video game. There's a Malamore competition where you compete with your Switch upside down, which I love. There's I think a women's only invitational on one of the competition days. So there's like these really cool other opportunities if you're interested. But I would say that the main purpose of the tournament is competition, so that's going to be the main focus of it. But of course, whatever city you're in, you can make plans later on for what you want to visit or see. For me, I found that the competition, 8 rounds in one day, and if you advance further, there could be more. I found it kind of a bit stressful. In terms of like, I don't know how much energy I would have had to want to do other things after the fact. But if you are younger than me, you might have more energy after rounds of competition. After my rounds of competition, I was like, let's get some food and call it a day. Now, it kind of brings us to the next point. What if I don't make it far in the tournament? Is it still worth the experience? So the thing is, you get those 8 rounds no matter what, if you so choose. Once you lose 3 rounds, you are technically eliminated, like you won't be able to advance, but you can choose to compete longer if you want to. And that's really kind of up to you. For me, it was my first regional, so I said, I'm going to compete, unless, even if I go 0-8, and thankfully I didn't, which I'll talk about my competition experience more in the future, in a future video. But thankfully it was I think there's still lots of fun things to do. Even if you're not advancing, you still get to meet people and you still have the opportunity to learn. So another thing is, what kind of community is there in a Pokemon regional, right? Any competition event is really kind of predicated on the atmosphere, right? I've done speech and debate tournaments, I've done bowling tournaments, I've done a variety of different competitions. And I can tell you, oftentimes my experience is really reflective on the community that I am entering in. And I think for Pokemon, I found it to be one of the coolest communities, that I've been. I thought there were so many wonderful people. I was very fortunate in my 8 opponents. I had 8 opponents. 4 of them were women, 4 of them were men. I faced 2 trans women. It was really inclusive. I faced people from Canada, from China, from other parts of the world that I wouldn't meet otherwise. And I thought that was a really cool experience. And I found that as a huge value add for me, seeing all these other people and like that are enjoying the same game, the same thing that I like, right? So me and my Tyranitar and Garchomp are able to, we're able to compete in the competition. I use those 2 on my team. Gengar and Dugtrio, they're here for vibes. I found the community really wonderful. Of course, with any community, there are probably, people to avoid and watch out for, but as a first time, I found it very welcoming. I had strangers overhear a conversation I have and they would join. It was very natural. The judges at the tournament were very helpful when I had questions, because I had a lot of logistic questions, which I'm going to get to the logistics in a second, because if you're like me, I wasn't worried about these questions, right? I knew I was going to have a good time. I wasn't worried so much about the community. I wasn't worried about the atmosphere. I was worried about logistics, which brings us to, how do you register for an event? So what you need to do is you need to have a profile on RK9 Labs, which is a website. You create it, make sure you create it with the correct name, because I think I created it with the wrong name. I'm gonna have to fix that later, because I put my legal name, but I go by Bobby in all different capacities. So how do you register for an event? when you are paying attention, I'd recommend following Pokemon Play on some kind of social media so you can get pay attention to when they're going to announce the registration dates. Now, I personally, and this is just because of who I am, I treat registration like I'm registering for like a big concert or a big music festival. And what I mean by that is I'm ready. I have an alarm set on my calendar like 5 minutes before it's gonna go, so I'm ready to register. Now, most Pokemon tournaments, you don't need to like register within the first like 10 minutes or hour, a couple hours. But for Vegas, I knew it was gonna be popular. And so thankfully I registered right when it opened, and registration closed within like 3 hours. So that's probably a Vegas exclusive problem. But if you know you're going to go to a tournament, I'd recommend registering as soon as you can so you don't have to worry about it. There's also the opportunity spots can open up later, which happened for some people as people drop. And also, if you're on the fence of a tournament, you could, in theory, register and then pull out later. Depending how late you pull out determines how much of your registration fee you get back. But that's just something for you to know. So, and then the last part of registering for the event, after you get your name, there you can get the spectator badge if you have anyone coming, supporting you, or just coming for vibes, whatever reason they're a spectator. You will have to make sure you submit your team on Arcanine Labs before the due date. It was 5:30 a.m. before the competition, so lots of time. But just make sure that you take that seriously, because it's actually a lot more. It's a lot more resource energy intensive than like doing a limitless tour or something online where you just have the team sheet, because they're gonna want to know how the Pokemon look in your Switch. What are their names? What are their exact stats? What level are they? All these sorts of things. And so that's something that's probably hard to do right before. So you'll have to submit your Terra types, their stats, all their moves, and things of that nature. So you just want to make sure you're doing that correctly, because if you have a team sheet error, it could result in a loss, it could result in other problems. And I was like, listen, I know I'm going to lose at this tournament on my own account. I don't need to do it because I entered something incorrectly. So what does it look like from the beginning? Like, what does the process, the beginning of the day to the end of the day look like? So the morning of the competition, like I mentioned, there's going to be a registration period. You can get those badges beforehand. It's really kind of up to you, or when you get in. You'll register, and then you'll have the first round. I think for any kind of competition, the first round always feels like the most nerve-wracking, because no one's done the thing that they're there for that day. And so eventually, I think people kind of settle in after the third or fourth round, and people also kind of wake up. The first round started at 8:30, which for some people might be early. For me, I had no issue with it. And then you just keep doing the rounds. There aren't really designated times for a lunch break, so you would want to have snacks on hand. The venue might have some food. I somewhat intentionally played a team that was very aggressive. And what I mean by that is I was winning or losing very fast. And a benefit of that for me was that it allowed me more time in between the rounds. So that's something you might want to think about when you're creating your team for the tournament, is like, if you really like a slow, stally team, that's fine. Go for it. Live your life. Like, Tatsugiri, they're your homies. I get it. But just know you might have longer matches, and that could make it like you're one of the last to finish, and then there might be a quick turnaround to the next round. Once everyone gets their rounds in, or all the rounds are in, then they'll pair the next round in about 5 to 10 minutes, and they will post the pairings on Arcanine Labs. Now they will also post paper postings, but there are lots of people, so I would try to do the sorry, my cat was trying to ruin the video. When you post online, I would still try to do it online. You can Control F for your name. It's probably the easiest. At the event itself, for the video game competition, they have like these consoles set up. And so the only issue I found at this particular event was that my service was not very good in the venue, and so I actually needed my fiance's phone to find my pairings. And so I'm very grateful on different providers. So just know that's something that could be a difficulty. But a little trick is, as I was mentioning, when you compete in the VGC, they have this computer set up. They have these Ethernet cords set up, and if you actually plug your phone in, it can give you internet that way, because the Ethernet cable is connected to the to the charging port. And so that's just a little trick, but that can be a bit stressful trying to get your pairings, especially when everyone's running around. If you run into a situation where you lose your team sheet, which I'm going to talk about team sheets more in a second, but if you lose that, there is a place you could get that printed out. My opponent and I, in our second round, we left with each other's team sheet, and I was like, I don't have it to give to my opponent for the next round, which created those issues. At the beginning of the day, before your first round, you'll face your opponent, and the judges will come by and provide a team sheet for you. That team sheet will have everything you submitted to Arcanine Labs in different languages. So if your opponent speaks another language, they'll be able to understand what you're doing. But like I mentioned, for example, I had an opponent who was from China, and she was still able to read because there is a section in Chinese, and for me there's a section in English, so it worked out so we knew what each person was doing. Now, this is probably, to me, maybe the most important or like biggest questions I had that I couldn't have answered without doing it, and that is, how does each round work from start to finish? So as I mentioned, you'll get the posting, whether you're seeing it online or if you're seeing it with paper, and then you will go to your table. It'll say Bobby Labita, that's me, table whatever, so table 40, and it'll have your opponent. And so you go to that table, you face each other across from each other, and some people be next to you. It might be tight the first couple rounds, but as people kind of leave or get eliminated, there might be a little bit more space because they need less chairs and things like that. You'll go and you'll see your opponent, and when you're there, you might have your notebook or whatever you have to take notes on. And good luck. Hi, I'm blah, blah, blah. Make sure you're with the right person. And the way that it works, at least for this, for Scarlet and Violet, this may change for champions, but what we would do is we would use the Union Circle feature on the Poke Portal, and we would link with each other. So one person would open the Union Circle, the other person would join. And you plug your Switch in, whether it's Switch 1, Switch Lite, Switch 2, into that cable that I mentioned that has the internet. You will turn your Switch onto airplane mode so that the only internet you're getting is that current access. And then because you're in airplane mode, you would need wired headphones. You're not allowed to have unwired headphones. You're also supposed to have a wired controller. So if you want to compete with your controller, it has to connect to the Switch itself directly in order for it to work. And then after you two get connected on Union Circle, someone will pick the correct battle format, which is like usually battle rules 1, and then you trade team sheets. Then you'll have 90 seconds before the first round, and there'll be a countdown on the thing. Make sure you select your 4 Pokemon before. You can select them and not submit, but if you forget to do it, it will select the top 4 or the next highest one that you didn't select if you don't select your 4. You'll do your round, or you'll do your first game, and then you'll see who wins or loses, and then you go to your second game, and it's best 2 out of 3. So after 2, you can be done. What happens when the rounds are beginning is that the judges will come around and provide a match slip to each competitor, not competitor, but each team. And what happens is it says game 1, game 2, game 3, you'll mark off the winner, and there's initials. It's customary that whoever wins the round will then head to the judges table with the slip. So if you're ever at a tournament or watching a tournament and you see your buddy like walk away from it first and they seem kind of happy, it's probably because they have the match slip that they won. It's not uncommon after a match is over to talk to your opponent. You could talk strategy. One of my opponents, she was like, "Why did you not bring this one to the match?" And I was like, "Oh, you're right. I should have, because that would have been so much better." A lot of people on Pokemon might have a Twitter account, Instagram, right? You can make friends. And like I said, most people were pretty friendly. And everyone I faced, except for my first opponent, it was not their first regional. So I at first thought I was gonna be really nervous, but I ended up not feeling that nervous. part of it, I was very fortunate to start. I won the first couple matches, which I'll again talk about more specifically in what that experience was like in a future video, which helped calm my nerves. But just getting that first couple matches in was helpful. But I had no idea what the start of the first round or the process was, and so it was this nebulous thing. So for me, the most anxiety I had about going to the regional was this specific thing, like what does a round look like for what does a round look like from start to finish. So what do you need to bring to a Pokemon Regional? I've already talked about some of these things, but first is an important thing that you want to bring are snacks, a notebook, pen and paper. You want to bring your Switch. You want to bring your headphones, if you have them, again, wired headphones, and your controller if you're using them. My controller I brought didn't have a wired connection, so I had to play the handheld mode, but again, it's connected to the thing, so it was not too big of a deal. But in the future, I wish I had brought a wired controller so I wouldn't have had to worry that so much. You'll want to bring energy, because it's very easy the first couple rounds because you're like, whoa, Pokemon, and then after round 7 you're like, Pokemon, so much of it, why are there so many Pokemons, right? So just know you might end up getting a little bit tired towards the end. So if you are a person who needs caffeine or an energy drink, I don't know you, unless I do, but I don't know, I probably don't. If you're watching this, I probably don't know you. So see what feels good to you when you're going. And so last is kind of like, what are the things I wish I knew before my first regional? So again, I've already explained, for me, the round process was the part that was the most nebulous, because I'm like, I get the competition part, I've done the VGC part, I've done a couple online tournaments, I've done a couple grand challenges, right? But I actually have never done an in-person tournament before. And so I would recommend don't do that. I would recommend try to find a local community to do a in-person tournament. I think that would have gave me a lot less nerves going into it. I had a lot of nerves because I didn't know what that in-person experience was like. And also the benefit of a local, which I didn't realize till later, because after the fact I was like, oh, my local scene's actually pretty vibrant, but I didn't know that. And I wish I did, because I probably would have made a lot more friends at the tournament. Like, my local scene did a full-on photo with a bunch of people, and I didn't know because I didn't bring myself into the scene. So a thing I'd recommend is try to make a couple of friends who are going to go. I was very fortunate that my fiance was coming with me, so I knew I had a built-in friend. We're going to have a good time. But to maybe make your experience a little less stressful, I'd recommend try to make some friends. And the best place are the locals, especially if you're going to regional that is local to you. I'm in Southern California, so I knew a lot of people would go to Vegas, and that's why I picked Vegas. So ultimately, when we're asking the question, is a Pokemon regional worth the price? I'd say yes. But things that you have to consider, which I haven't talked about, are travel. The cost of travel, the cost of taking off your job. Those are different factors that might affect you. And so you might want to be very intentional about your first regional. Be intentional about maybe it's local to you. I picked Vegas because it's close to me, and my best friend, his dad lives in Vegas, and he very kindly gave us a place to sleep, and so that reduced my costs, right? So maybe pick a regional where you have some friends who you can crash on their couch, or a city that you've always wanted to go to, and so you don't mind spending some of the money on housing or travel or things like that. We were able to drive, and so that made it a lot more reasonable than taking a flight. Other things that you might want to consider are the time of the year. For example, I might go to a regional next year, and I'm definitely going to go, which tells you I think the experience was worth it. But I'm going to go because it works in my work schedule, and I don't actually have to take any days off of work in order to go. Because ultimately, I don't plan on becoming rich from Pokemon tournaments, right? It's something I want to do for fun and get to travel and ultimately meet really cool people who have the same nerdy interests that I do. And so for me, I found the experience incredibly worth it. And honestly, it was the most fun I had at anything in a really long time. I left feeling so elevated and so kind of just high, not drug high, a life high, right? Wow, this is so cool. I felt like a childlike wonder that I haven't felt in a long time. And that was just my experience, but I'd recommend, if it works for you, whether it's, if you can make it work in your schedule, do so. So I'd recommend look at the regionals that are upcoming, see if any of them interest you within the next year. If not, maybe over the summer when they announce the following year's regionals, that might be an opportunity to go. The beautiful thing about Pokemon, and this is something I realized, it's one of those games you can pick up and put down as your life necessitates it. When I was younger, I used to play it a lot. In college and grad school, didn't play it a lot. And now I'm getting back into it, that I'm finding a little bit more time in my life. And I'm intentionally trying to build in time for my hobbies. And I'm so grateful that this is a hobby that I could spend some time and some energy with and make new friends. And when I went, I had a lot of friends like from high school that I haven't talked to in a while. They're like, oh my gosh, I love VGC. I didn't know you're into it. And now we're starting to hang out more. And so it's even strengthening my connections I already had with people, which I think is so cool, and you can't really put a price on that. And so I'd recommend, if you're on the fence, I'd really encourage you to go. If you have any questions or concerns, I'm happy to answer. I've only gone to one regional, and I realized that that's probably not a lot compared to some people you are watching or consuming their content, but I didn't see, again, like a really good kind of primer video on what to do for a regional. And that's kind of why I wanted to make this, to give some people some peace of mind. Whether is the time worth the investment? Is it the money worth the investment? Is the emotional part of it, is it all worth it, right? Because we don't want to spend this time preparing a team, registering for an event, spending a weekend maybe away from family, maybe having to take days off of work. We don't want to do that if it's not going to be worth it. And I would 100% do it again without any doubts. And so if you enjoyed this video, if you found this helpful, please feel free to add some comments below, like, subscribe, all those good things. Like I mentioned, I'm going to have a video out soon talking about what that experience was actually like. How did it go for me? Did I go winless? I already admitted that I didn't go winless, but I was really worried about that, and very grateful that I did not. So if that interests you, if you want to see my VGC journey and my Pokemon journey, please click the subscribe button wherever it is on the screen, because I don't know. All right. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll catch you on the next one.